Welcome to Conversations on the Oaks. This podcast is supported by the Dillard University Office of Communications and Marketing. I'm Eddie Francis, your host. At any faith-based institution, such as Dillard, an important role is that of the chaplain. But what makes the chaplain so important? This episode's guest, Reverend Herbert Brisbon III, talks about how his role contributes to students' health beyond religion. The views expressed on Conversations on the Oaks do not necessarily reflect the views of Dillard University or any parties associated with the university. Joining us on Conversations on the Oaks is Reverend Herbert Brisbon. He is the university chaplain here at Dillard University. Reverend Brisbon, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. Reverend, one of the things that people may not understand when they hear about a university chaplain is exactly what a university chaplain does. So tell us, what do you do as university chaplain here at Dillard?
Well, one of the things when we talk about what does the chaplain do, I tease people all the time, and I said I'm the generalist. I'm the one that a generalist or a general social worker in some capacity. That's the best way to describe it, because I do a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and when I say a little bit of this, a little bit of that, I'm also the spiritual leader for the community. So providing some type of spiritual centering, helping be it interfaith. Well, a lot of it is interfaith because we have a very diverse background here at Dillard University, which allows me to create opportunities and partner with other faith backgrounds in order to provide services to our community. And one of the things that I love about being at Dillard, even though we're Christ-centered, but we're God-centered, which means that we're open to all faiths, all denominations. That's not offensively abusing individuals. So let me put that in there. But just making sure that there's a place for everyone at the table. And so I do everything from being a presence at the funeral of a loved one, if I'm able to do that, or assisting families during that time, or being with families that are going, students especially, and staff and faculty in whatever way I can, as it relates to being a pastoral presence on the campus. I assist in career development, helping individuals to kind of discern a little bit, operating as a career coach or a spiritual coach, helping individuals to find their center. So I do a number of things, be it the chaplain of the basketball team where I'm praying for them before the service, as I call it, their service, which is the basketball game. But it can be as simple as that, or just being a mere presence. Because sometimes people don't need words, they just need someone to be present with them with whatever they're going through. And so that's been, and also I'm teaching faculty. So I'm also helping students to navigate their educational journey as well on the side of teaching. And so I'm able to even connect in that capacity, because again, people don't think about spirituality even in the classroom. So it's my opportunity to kind of help help them navigate the uncharted waters in those moments of crisis, and help them to know it's okay to have those faith crisis moments, and to question, where is God? Or if there is a God, it's okay. And so my role is to help as a spiritual leader to provide some type of navigational assistance for the community.
Perhaps something that people may wonder, and because you already said that you don't necessarily have to be Christian in order for someone to have your services. Something that people may wonder, particularly colleagues at other faith-based institutions, especially if they're Christian institutions, what does a spiritual journey look like for a lot of students? What have you observed, not even just here at Dillard, but at other places you've been?
One of the things I have observed is that many of them are in a place of anxious presence. So the anxiety is just all over the place because of the uncertainty. Everybody's in a rush trying to get to the next mile, and not taking a moment to celebrate or to embrace the inch. And so that's been one of the major things that I've noticed being in our communities. Everybody's always in a rush versus sitting down and embracing the moment. And that's been one of the biggest things I've noticed. The second is just operating from a place of uncertainty and not wanting to submit to being uncertain, and finding that it's okay to be uncertain in this moment as to where they are. And so that also helps to bring an increase in anxiety. So we're trying to discern, how do you help leverage that so it doesn't overtake you, but give you fuel to run on to the next end. So,
Reverend, one of the things that I know you're passionate about is you are passionate about mental health when it comes to students.
yes.
And you made some really interesting points just now about how students are always in a rush and they have a hard time being present in the moment. How do you fold spirituality into working with students when it comes to their mental and emotional health?
Well, one of the things that I'm very trying to be very vigilant is helping students to find some means of discipline, spiritual formation, be it journaling, be it just taking time to sit back and just breathe deeply, and or just consume the moment. Those are the things that we're learning, because one of the things that I've encountered, especially in the last couple of years, especially since COVID, it forced us to sit still and reckon with yourself. And many of us, for so long, we've been so overly stimulated between social media, music, TV, whatever. We've allowed everything else to consume us versus us being one with ourselves. And so that's been one of the biggest things. And so when we talk about mental health, many of us had to really, I hate using this expression, but we had to recognize our demons and take ownership of them. And I don't use that loosely, but when I talk about your demons, I mean, it's just more of us dealing with our insecurities, us being at a place where we can say, okay, and being okay with the mere fact that I'm insecure in an area, and saying that it's okay for me to ask for help. Those are things that really impact our mental health and how we view ourselves. And so that's something that we're constantly wrestling with our students in order to create opportunities for them to yield or submit to their area of weakness. And I use that word loosely here, but I'm using it very intentionally, because when people hear the word weakness, they see it as being something that's negative. But here I'm using it as a positive manner, because it's in your weakness that you're able to find the strength in order to move forward. And many times we don't teach that in our society. When you think about it, you always want to pick on the weak one, but in actuality, the weak one is the Clark Kent. The weak one is the one that really has the strength to move forward, but it takes something in order to put them in a place where they can recognize the inner strength that they do have inside of them. And so back to this whole mental health component, I tell them all the time, and I preach this, is that I believe in Jesus and a couch and a prayer and a pill. When it comes down to it, you do what you need to do to make sure that you're mentally healthy. I believe in prayer. I believe in meditation. I believe in consulting and knowing that we serve a God that can do the impossible, but he also gives, or she gives us the medication that is needed so that we can be regulated chemically, because sometimes we're chemically off balance. Sometimes we need to get someplace where no one knows us, but they can provide an objective view and not be afraid or ashamed of that. That's one piece that I try to make sure we lift up here, because I partner very closely with our counseling center and making sure I provide pastoral care, which again, there's a level by which I can engage. But when I realize that it's more than I can handle, I pass it off to those that are trained and licensed that can better provide some type of direction for the student, the faculty, or staff. So when we talk about mental health in the church, one of the things that I caution persons about, everybody always wants to be on a high note. But if you go back and begin to look at the Psalms, there were moments when David was in the valley. And if he wasn't in the valley, he wouldn't talk about God being a shepherd, and he would not want. So again, these are things that we got to be mindful of, even as a chaplain. What is my role when it comes to helping students navigate their mental journey and their spiritual journey? Because both of them, I think they're married. There's no separation of the two. And so how do we create space for persons to find opportunities to connect in a healthy way and see that it's not something of a taboo issue, but it's something that provides, but it will provide some balance for the individual. And many of us are coming from broken homes. So you got to deal with the stuff that you're bringing with you. How do you deal with that? Because that's shaping you, that's molding you. But some of it is good, some of it is bad, some of it is indifferent. But as you process this, it gives you an opportunity to go beyond that place of what's familiar and not be trapped in a place that paralyzes you. And so that's when we talk about that mental health thing, that's something that is near and dear to my heart.
You're listening to Conversations on the Oaks. I'm Eddie Francis, and we're talking to Reverend Herbert Brisbon III, who is the university chaplain at Dillard University. And you're going to have to bear with the good Reverend because he's having to deal with good old New Orleans pollen season, which is not the easiest thing in the world for a lot of folks to do. Reverend, I keep coming back to this point that you've mentioned it a couple of times now, a few times now, about students being able to slow down and also recognizing that when they have a moment of weakness is not necessarily a bad thing. Mm-hmm. Describe what it has been like when you have seen students be able to stop, to be still, to really think about what's going on in their lives, and they've been able to successfully manage whatever that situation has been with your guidance and or with the guidance of our good folks at the counseling center, but mostly with your guidance. Describe what you've seen when they're able to manage that moment in their lives.
Well, one of the things that I can say is that I've seen them regain control over their life. Mm. And that's a big one, because many of us are fighting for control over our lives, but not realizing that sometimes it takes a moment for you to sit back, breathe deeply, and recognize that you're not in control. Just that alone gives so much liberating power to an individual, and recognizing that they can only do what they can control, and everything they're not going to be able to control. But what you can control is how you respond to a stimulus. And so that's the key thing. And so I think about some of the students now that are working with me as we all are on this journey together, because I too am one, I'm not exempt, that I have to sit back and sometimes pause. And I always share with them this one story about my first journey to South Africa and being with a group of students that are traveling internationally in Johannesburg airport, getting ready to get on a flight from Joburg to Cape Town. And what was so crazy, I was one of the few Black students that was in the group. And my group was going ahead of me, and I was coming behind them and running in the same manner. And the travel stewardess, she stops me and pulls me to the side. And I'm like, what in the world are you doing? My group is going ahead of me. And she allowed everyone else to go in front of me. And I'm like, y'all, I need to catch this flight. I don't know what I've done, so all of my anxieties, this is the first time I've traveled internationally in that capacity. But at the end, she says to me, slow down and enjoy life, or you will miss life. And I had to ponder a minute, and she still didn't let me go. She said, you're home now. Slow down and enjoy life, or you will miss life. And that's something that has been governing my life ever since then. And that's been over 28 years ago. But again, that is something that is at the key of who I am. But if it wasn't for that moment, you can tell that moment had some type of impression on my life. And so that's one of the things that I try to ingrain with those persons that I'm working with, to help them to understand, stop trying to rush your life away, but experience this moment. And I always think about a photographer. A photographer is forever taking pictures, but very rare do you see them in the picture. Very rare, because they're busy trying to capture someone else's experience, but they negate their experience. And so when we're working with the students, the goal is to help them to experience that moment and not run away from it. I don't care if it's pain. I don't care if it's misery. I don't care. Whatever it is, you got to experience those things, because those are the moments that help to make you and cause you to be refined in ways that you would never imagine. So, and it's just interesting when students begin to recognize that and yield into the moment of pain or the moment of joy or moment of indifference, the transformation that takes place in their lives. And so it's been interesting just watching that happen as we journey together, in the season. So it's about us submitting, and what you can't control, get somewhere where someone can help you navigate this and give you the tools in order to better manage And I'm using manage loosely here, but so that you're able to cope with what you're dealing with at that moment. And that's where the counseling center comes in, so that we're able to get to that next level. Because again, I do believe that all things work together. It's not an insular component, but we need a compound solution. Who would do this with me? And so we try to pair it with the counseling center, or even just with some of the administration that may have a gift of just nurturing and directing. So again, it's not something that I do alone, but I do it in tandem with the community.
Mm-hmm. So is this something that you see that may be one of the biggest mental and emotional needs that students have to slow down, or have you recognized something else that you believe is a mental and emotional need, or a bigger need for a lot of students?
I would say it's both and.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, our society teaches us to stay in a hustle. The American dream is always to stay on a grind. And what we teach our students, especially when it comes to our traditional pedagogy, is about you got to be on the ground, you got to be on a hustle, you got to be bigger and better. But we do not reinforce the moment of taking a Selah. We don't reinforce the moment of taking a moment and celebrating small victories. We don't take the time to really encourage our students, our staff, and our faculty to sit down and breathe and just reflect over what has been done. Because we are programmed to get to the next thing and not stop, pause, and celebrate. And that also provides an opportunity for you to do some serious assessment of what you have done. And if you need to pivot, it gives you that opportunity to do that.
Reverend Brisbon, last question. You and I were having a conversation, excuse me, and you mentioned something that I thought was absolutely fascinating, that you see that spirituality can play a pretty significant role in getting students through to graduation. How does that work? How do you see spirituality playing that role so that students persist and they finish up their degrees?
Well, when you make a this is essential. When you sit down and think about it, the pursuit of higher education can be an exciting and rewarding journey for many of our students. But however, you and I both know that challenging experiences require a great deal of focus and commitment. But one of the things I'm very clear of, if a person has some form of spirituality, and I tease them all the time, but in all sincerity, you can be an atheist to a believer, but you're going to have some sense of belief, be it in yourself or in something that's greater than yourself. It gives you a deeper a deeper stabilizing element that causes you to move to a whole new level. And so the benefit is that it can provide a sense of purpose and meaning that can help each of our students stay motivated and focus on their goals. And so a lot of our students, when they seem somewhat I call it the fog, because being here in New Orleans, I've learned a whole new meaning around fog. And for some of us, it can be quite thick. But your spirituality, your centering, your focus, your belief either in yourself or higher being or both and gives you the anchoring that is needed in order to navigate those moments that seem so thick and plagued with fog of uncertainty. And so, and for our students, those that do have a strong spiritual compass have a greater chance of completing the task, because in the midst of their challenges and in the midst of their fog, they're able to hold on to something that helps navigate them inch by inch. And that's one of the things that I'm very, 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 very secure in stating affirmatively, that spirituality plays a very important role. And even the role of the chaplain helps them to nurture their spirituality to go to the next level. It's almost like an athlete that is in training. If you don't have a good coach, you don't go far, but your coach will help you get to the next level. And so I view myself as that coach that helps them to get to the next level of their journey here at Dillard University, and even those that I come in contact with, because it just doesn't stop here. And be it students or faculty, our goal is to provide some type of spiritual challenge to the students. Ex Fides Fortis means strength through faith, or courage and strength, however they want to define it. But at the end of the day, it's about you and I tapping into something that is larger than ourselves, be it within oneself or being something that's larger than themselves. But just having a large belief in something bigger. And one of the things that I did discover, research has shown that students who report a strong sense of spirituality are more likely to persist in their studies. They're more likely to achieve higher levels of academic success, and they're more inclined to obtain their visions or goals that they've set before them. So again, spirituality is so important when it comes to higher education. And they even come with a stronger sense of purpose and fulfillment. So that's where I think my role is as the university chaplain around spirituality, and even with retention. You think about it. If you have a greater sense of purpose, you understand why you're here, and there's a greater chance of you remaining here. So,
Reverend Herbert Brisbon is the chaplain here at Dillard University. Reverend Brisbon, thank you so much for joining us on Conversations on the Oaks.
Thank you. It was a joy.
Thank you to Reverend Herbert Brisbon III for joining Conversations on the Oaks. To learn more about Reverend Brisbon and his work, go to www.dillard.edu/chaplain. Conversations on the Oaks is brought to you by the Dillard University Office of Communications and Marketing. Subscribe to Conversations on the Oaks and rate it on your favorite platform: iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, Spreaker, and more. Until next time, I'm Eddie Francis. Thank you for downloading this edition of Conversations on the Oaks.